You are listening to the Amoda Maa podcast. In this series, Amoda explores her essential teaching through conversation and excerpts from interviews and events. To find out more about events and to sign up for her newsletter, go to www.amodamaa.com. Please subscribe, comment and share if this podcast moves you. And if you feel called to donate, please go to the website. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy. Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another podcast with Amoda Maa. My name is Kavi, if you don't know already, and I am delighted once again to be back with my beloved, looking into all things to do with her teaching and a kind of investigation and exploration, a kind of unwrapping, sometimes of what goes on underneath the hood or behind the spiritual teacher, and yeah. So, hello, Amoda.
Hello, Kavi.
Today. Hold on, let me start the thing. Today we're going to explore aloneness. Now, Amoda, I know this has been asked of you quite a few times. You've spoken about it. You've actually written about it in I know one or both of your books, but it actually is a subject that comes up kind of time and time again. It comes up in relationship to you, asking you what is meant by aloneness, and also for the inquiry that people have, yeah, because a lot of people that we seem to encounter through the teaching experience what they call loneliness, and want to find or explore maybe a deeper meaning, a deeper relationship to it of, am I stuck with my aloneness? Kind of thing. So we've kind of tentatively called this aloneness as a doorway to beingness. And I am going to ask you at some point about your own personal journey, your own personal experience of aloneness into awakening, if that's correct. But that's the kind of exploration. Obviously, knowing our conversations, they go to they have tentacles in all sorts of different areas, and we're not going to shy away from those. But let's start with aloneness.
You said a moment ago, are we stuck with our aloneness? And
I did say that because that's the question, isn't it?
Yes, and it's an interesting phrase because in that sense we are stuck with our aloneness. So let's begin there. We are stuck with our aloneness, but we are not necessarily stuck with our loneliness. So yes, many people complain of loneliness, living alone, or usually that's what it is, living alone. Perhaps not having family or children or a relationship or a work situation that brings them into proximity with other people. Or maybe it does, and still there's a feeling of loneliness. So there's a difference between loneliness and aloneness. Loneliness is a thought about me and my life. I'm abandoned. I'll never find anyone to love me. I'm unloved. I need somebody. I need someone to care for me. I need someone to care for. I need to feel connected. I need connection. It's a story, a narrative about me and my life. If only I could connect with another or with more people, then I wouldn't feel this thing called loneliness. I wouldn't feel alone. And so on. So that's very different to the fact of aloneness. The fact of aloneness is that we are born alone and die alone, and essentially experience our lives alone, because nobody else can do it on our behalf. It's a singular experience. Whatever we're experiencing, only the I can experience that. And so that's the fact of aloneness, which most people, or many people, shy away from because it butts up against loneliness, which has a poor me in it. But aloneness does not necessarily have a poor me in it. So we need to kind of disentangle loneliness from aloneness. Yeah, that's almost like the first stage. To accept the fact of our aloneness is the beginning of a deeper spiritual inquiry that opens a doorway that we're obviously going to talk about, but I don't want to rush ahead too much. Relating it to my own life, as we often do, it gives people a little bit of, a texture and a background to our discussions. I used to be lonely. Yeah. I used to need a relationship. I was frightened of being alone. I was frightened of feeling alone and feeling that I was all alone in a big, wide world that I didn't understand or know how to navigate. I felt unloved. I felt like I needed somebody to love me in order to not feel this aloneness, this loneliness. And really that stems from a core belief in separation, that I am a separate me, all alone in a big, wide universe, if you like. And somehow that juxtaposition of the small me and the big, wide universe creates a sense of separation. And so again, this is a doorway to examining who or what we are beyond the idea of a separate me. So in some ways that sounds like a contradiction. On the one hand, I'm saying there's the fact of aloneness, which is singular. Our experience is singular. Nobody can have it on our behalf. We can't share our experience. Even when we speak about our experience and when we speak from our hearts and when we speak from our truth, we can't actually share our experience, the direct, naked fact of our experience. We can only share an interpretation of it through our words, through our language. So there is a fact of aloneness, but that, again, that's not the same as a belief in a separate me. That is somehow standing outside of life, standing outside of existence.
So what I hear you talking about are two different levels of meeting or having an experience. One is on the almost on the level of self. And actually, when you were just speaking about loneliness, I kind of felt into what it is, what it conjures up, because it's a nebulous term, loneliness. What on earth does it mean? But it has a kind of despair in it. It has a deep well in it. Is actually what I hear. The story of one's life has led to this moment, and it's lonely, and I'm never going to get out of it. And there's a despair in that. And then what I hear you kind of talking about or pointing to with aloneness is something very, very different from that. It has transcended the story. I don't like to use that word. I don't use it glibly, but it's actually there's a different relationship than just the story. And then what I hear is that actually the experience of loneliness and despair is ipso facto, with enough guidance or wisdom or something, or willingness, the doorway to the realization of aloneness.
Yes, well, the doorway to the realization of all oneness. Yeah, aloneness is the doorway. Yeah, it's like they're on a continuum. You have loneliness at one extreme, you have aloneness in the center, and you have all oneness at the other end, at the other extreme of the continuum. And, you know, aloneness brings you, which is meeting the fact of aloneness, the fact of singularity of experience, singularity of perception. Yeah, this direct experience is the doorway. Yeah, it's gone beyond the loneliness, which has despair and poor me and the need for connection, the need to be fulfilled, or somehow that pain, if you like, of existential aloneness being covered up through contact with others. Yeah, it's gone beyond that. Yeah, so the narratives, the story that arise from the me self are transmuted, if you like, or even transcended, we could say. And then the very fact of aloneness, the singularity of this direct experience that can only be experienced through this. Yeah, through this individuation at this time, but without the stories that attach themselves to it. Yeah, that's the doorway. And then that doorway, and we can talk about how that's met, yeah, then takes us into the realization of all oneness. And we can talk about what that means as well.
I think we should, yeah. Yes. So, wow. Well, so there's a great journey, if you like, from the experience or the interpretation of loneliness, as we call it, a human story. There's a lot of stories in there. Not all of them are, you know. It's not to dismiss them because they're stories. You know, they're very valid on the human level because we've been living lives that have been encouraged in that way. They are that, aren't they? And then to move from that to the direct experience is a big journey.
It is the path of true spiritual inquiry. It can be a long or a short journey.
How do we make it so short?
How do we make it shorter?
Well, I know that's a question that people want because it seems to be interminable for many people, to not just loneliness, but actually, you know, moving beyond or transcending or transmuting this visceral human experience. It's tenacious. It's a tenacious experience.
Yes, and the willingness for radical truth, for radical clear seeing, can cut through that. Yeah, if we really want to see the truth, if we really want to know reality beyond the clinging self that clings to its stories. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what's tenacious. But if you really have the willingness for that, if you really yearn for freedom, true freedom, at all costs, and you give your life to that, then it becomes more available.
And when you say at all costs, does it mean at all costs? You know, at all mental constructs? Are you pointing at those really?
I am, yes. At all costs, on a psychological, mental, even emotional level. Yeah. The tenacious hold of me and my story, me and my problems, me and my woundedness, me and my traumas, me and my being hard done by, me and my whatever it might be, me and my unworthiness, and so on, is a tenacious grip of the victim identity.
Yes, it
and
is.
I found both in myself, certainly, and in speaking with many other people, that it's almost always some variation, some expression, if you like, or manifestation of the victim identity that is the main pin that holds the whole scaffolding of an idea of a separate me, a psychological construct of a me self that is separate, that is the root of suffering. That's what holds it together, and it's held on to. We don't want to let go of the victim, even when we don't think we're a victim. But there's always a poor me in it. Life's not living up to my expectations, or there isn't enough love, or I'm not loved enough, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not perfect enough, or I'm not ready enough, or I'm not willing enough, or I'm not. Yeah, it's always some variation of that. And the undoing of that, first of all, is the self-exposure, which is the beginning of self-inquiry. And then some kind of fire within, not a fire that comes from any effort or kind of, violent action, or, but a fire, the fire of truth, the fire for it all to be, the willingness for it all to come tumbling down. And there is a cost. I mean, there isn't ultimately, but there seems to be a cost. And the cost is the whole psychological structure of self, which is a kind of death, but it's the most beautiful death. It's the liberation that we seek. And actually, it is available. I don't like to support the idea that this is difficult. Neither is it like just something that is given to you just like that. There must be some inner trajectory or momentum that brings you to that, and that does require inner tenaciousness, and inner vigilance, and inner surrender. And of course, these are all, in some ways, qualities that seem quite difficult in contrast to the way that we've been trained and conditioned and taught to believe about ourselves and the world. But I can tell you that it is totally available.
So is the I just want to follow up about the victim self that keeps on going despite almost one's desire, let's say, to let go of it. Still the victim self, the one with the one that holds on, the one that hangs on. Why do we hang on so much?
Well, it hangs on until you're willing for it to die. It hangs on because it gives us a sense of self. And that sense of self is the sense of being a separate me.
So and we're back to the same thing. Yeah.
At the most, let's say, delicate level, on the more gross level, the victim self is the one that believes that I'm wounded. The bad things have happened to me. Well, maybe bad things have happened. That's a fact. But that I am wounded and I can't be healed. I'm not whole. Yeah, I'm unworthy. I'm unlovable. I'm ugly. I'm imperfect. Yeah, this is, if you like, on a gross surface level. Yeah, and on a more nuanced or delicate, refined level, the victim identity is really just a sense that I am here, I am me, and there's a world out there. There's a life out there that happens to me. Sometimes it happens to me in a bad way, and sometimes it happens to me in a good way. But I am here, and I am in some way separate. I can either be strong, and I'll do some techniques and some methods and some practices and some whatever psychological and even spiritual teachings, understandings, and practices to make myself strong so that I can deal with the life that happens to me and get what I want in order to feel stronger. Or I am very small and powerless, and life keeps on doing bad things to me, or things that are uncomfortable, things that hurt. Both of these strengthen the core identity of a victim, whether you feel strong in the face of life, or whether you feel weak in the face of life. You're still a victim of life. And what I'm talking about is a fundamental bursting of that bubble, a realization that life is not happening to you. You are life. You are life. Life is lifing itself as you, through you. I really can't say it in any other way. I only know this as a direct experience.
At the end of the thought of I.
No, it's the end of the thought of life happening to me.
Okay, standing outside life, which is what you said earlier.
Yes.
Because there is something inherent in the human condition that suggests that through conditioning or through assumption that somehow we are standing outside of life. But there is a part of that has a kind of truth, because there's a witness. There is a witness going on. So I want to include that, but fundamentally, we seem to believe that life is happening to us.
Well, even the witness is standing outside of life. I'm talking about an end to that. Whereas where there is a direct, visceral experience and deep knowing that doesn't ever fade away, that life is always taking place inside awareness. It's not an awareness looking at life. Life is taking place in awareness. It can't take place outside of awareness. That cannot be known. I can only know that life takes place inside awareness. And if I and awareness are one, and of course awareness has the capacity to see, perceive, experience, but there's no separation. There's no separation. Yeah. There isn't a separate entity called awareness looking at life and experiencing life from that separation. It's all happening as one, in the now, we can say. And nowness cannot be separated into me here and that there. That there is happening inside this here.
What?
Yeah, psychedelic. In some ways, because psychedelics undo the me. Yeah. So that's why it feels kind of so weird at times. It can do, because the me dissolves and then life is just experienced. It's just pure experience. And if there's no scrambling for the me, then it becomes blissful, ecstatic.
No scrambling for the me, did you say?
Yeah. It's in the scrambling for the me in the psychedelic experience that creates the bad trip.
Oh, I actually must say that's exactly what's happened to me when I was a youngster, and I was filled with trauma and filled with agitation and filled with trouble. And I'd take a lot of psychedelics, and I always had the same experience, and it just repeated like some terrible version of Groundhog Day, where I'd be invited almost into this open space that was non-definable and non-locatable. And I know that at a certain point I'd feel a certain fear and I'd scramble for the me. It wasn't actually, it was the scrambling for the me that caused the stress.
That's right. And that's where both the opportunity, I know we're talking about psychedelics, but it is relevant. The opportunity in the psychedelic experience for either hell or, the hell of scrambling for the me, or the heaven, if you like, or of freedom. There's actually freedom from me, and then life is just pouring through you. It is you. It's inseparable. The possibility of that, and actually a moment of enlightenment, is very strong. Yes. Although that's it's a little bit like a the eye of a needle and it's not permanent enlightenment, but certainly it's a glimpse. But you can translate that into life. Yeah, without the psychedelics, it's just a slowed down process. Psychedelics condense it, speed it up, and give you a very powerful doorway. Well, that doorway is always available in life. Yes. It's the same thing. We can scramble for the me, or we can not scramble for the me.
Yes.
And then the separation between me and life comes to an end. And if you're lucky, if you like, or if there's an ongoing journey of this, then never again are the two separate. I can tell you that I may experience some challenges in my life, as you know, Kavi. Not always, but occasionally challenges come. Maybe some complexities or some always to do with something to do in the world. But
banking.
Banking. Shh. Yes, some worldly matters can often be quite challenging and turbulent and so on and so on. But never anymore. And I've checked in with myself. Can I say that I feel a victim? I might feel pressured. I feel sometimes even burdened through time and energy and things like that. But I don't feel a victim of it.
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
And so that's fundamentally different to having a victim identity that feels like a poor me. Yeah. It's a kind of mechanism inside that starts to identify itself with that.
Yes.
And yes. So there is freedom from that. And when there's freedom from that.
So I want to actually ask you about that, because there are two different experiences happening here, yours and mine, because I know that yours, the end of the scrambling self happened fast for you. It happened in the awakening experience that you have talked about, and I'm going to invite you to talk about. And then there was my experience, which actually, through the grace actually of being with you and being diligently, endlessly dragged sometimes, invited other times, demanded other times onto this endless path, let's call it, that actually at first there was a scrambling in my experience to the self. I know this very well, because the times, all the life that you and I have had, you remember how I've been, until something happened. And it did happen. And it was like, wow, there's no scrambling for the self anymore. And it was a natural cessation. It wasn't a forced cessation. There was nothing actually that I did apart from keeping on going to see how endless the mechanism of the self that scrambles, or the scrambling of the self to reforge itself, or to re-identify, or to own it, or to become a victim again. It is how tenacious that is. You only really get to see that when it's not happening.
Yes, correct. Yes.
So it's it's that is beautiful, I must admit, because I too, like everybody else, was tortured on a certain level in the suffering of the self that scrambles and scrambles and scrambles and believes that that's what it has to do.
Yes.
And there is a great freedom in that going to bed.
Yes. And one of the greatest scrambling is in the experience of aloneness. It's like the final frontier.
Yes.
I mean, let's consider this. Why is meditation, and especially silence, like Zen meditation or Zazen, or sitting in silent retreat, or being in solitude, why is that a core invitation, if you like, of almost all spiritual traditions? going to the cave, being in darkness, going into the desert, sitting in zazen, going to an ashram, whatever it takes. Because it's not the meditation itself. It's the solitude. It's the silence. It's in that everything is exposed. Again, it's a little bit like a psychedelic experience slowed down. Although probably if you sat in silence alone for 30 days and in the dark, it would become a very psychedelic experience. Everything that's in your unconscious, all the unconscious mechanisms, the grasping, the scrambling, the story making, which has paranoia in it, has poor me in it, and so on and so on and so on. All of that gets exposed. Very, if you like, vociferously. It comes to the surface very quickly. And the danger in that, or what happens in that, is that we start to believe it. And then we want to get away from the solitude. There's something wrong with it. We want to leave the ashram. We want to leave the cave, or so on and so on.
I came here for bliss and I've got horror. Yeah.
So that's the time to be still. Now, we don't have to go into deep solitude in that way. Sometimes that's part of your life's journey. And if it brings you that way, great. It's never a guarantee anyway. But meeting our solitude, I mean, really, it can happen in a nanosecond. It can happen in an instant. It happens in the instant when you feel the loneliness and you've seen the mechanism of scrambling for the me, and perhaps there is an opportunity or a willingness to not scramble, to see the scrambling and not give allegiance to the scrambling, and to stay softly, quietly, openly, without an agenda, with the aloneness. It has no narrative in it. It's simply a sense, a texture. It's a texture. Yeah, it's a texture that has a texture of emptiness. It has a texture of vastness. It has a texture of non-existence. Yeah, and in that non-existence, it feels as if you are going to disappear. And if you disappear, you no longer exist. And if you no longer exist, that's a kind of death. And in that moment, there's a terror.
Yeah.
That's when you hang out there. No agenda, no scrambling, no expectation of where it will lead, either to your total demise or to your total transcendence. Just hang out there. It's an invitation to the deepest surrender. And that can happen in an instant. All it requires is the end of scrambling. Just remain here.
This is an exquisite invitation to the ultimate intimacy.
Yes, it is an ultimate intimacy with what seems to be aloneness, with what seems to be emptiness, what seems to be no thingness, which means no me-ness. And if you hang out long enough and the surrender is deep enough, it's like a deep relaxation into emptiness. I almost guarantee you, and I can't totally guarantee because it's a singular experience, but I almost guarantee you that if the surrender is total, you will be reborn into oneness. Because oneness is simply beingness. It's not a you that's connected to other things or other people or other individuations. No, the end of connection. There's no need anymore for connection. You are reborn as life itself, as beingness itself. And beingness is only one. Everything is born of beingness. And everything occurs and appears within beingness. That's where the fullness is the same as the emptiness. Emptiness and fullness are realized as one and the same. This is called self-realization. true enlightenment. Of course, there's a whole journey then, but in that moment.
So you in essence stop being the one who breathes, and you become the one who is breathed.
Yes, you could say that, absolutely.
Well, because it shifts the entire perspective.
That's right.
Of the I-ness, the me-ness.
Yes.
It's sort of you cannot accept that you're being breathed without recognizing that you are consciousness.
That's right. You are being lived. You're not the one doing the living, if you like. You're being lived. Yeah.
Wow.
And this completely changes. It's a rebirth, a resurrection. And really, from that place, there's no more need for connection. Of course, on a human everyday level, you may want to meet a friend or, whatever it might be. But that comes naturally, spontaneously, and without the underlying motivation or agenda of feeling connected, of needing anything. There's a simple enjoyment in it. And if it comes, it comes. And if it doesn't come, it doesn't come. Or there's another purpose to it or something like that. But it kind of takes away all belief in lack of wholeness, lack of completeness. It's complete at that point. Whether you live alone or not live alone, it's still the same.
So if this is let's just say the deepest intimate realization that you're being breathed, let's say that the individuation is arising out of consciousness, within consciousness. Not out of, but within.
No, within consciousness.
You've got to be careful.
That's right.
Oops, here we go again.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, within consciousness. Is this because that's deeply intimate to me. It's like down on the ocean floor. It's
an intimacy that transcends connection.
Is it an abiding state? I don't like to use that word. Is it an abidingness?
Realization. Is it an abiding?
And is it okay, or is it entirely natural for that movement of touching it and then the self forms again? Because we're living in a world that is extremely distracting and extremely tenacious, as we've already said, and it demands a self. We give it, and we give it ourselves, don't we? We give ourselves to it.
Well, two things. It can be a realization and a knowing that is deeply touched and then may fade away, and the self reforms itself with all its structures of me identities, perhaps not as strongly as before. It starts to become a little more permeable. And then perhaps there's another touching of it. And then, another reformation of self. This is the spiritual journey, if you like. Yes, that's possible.
Not as a so I've got to dig in here. Not as a memory, because that's also it starts the carrot and the stick. Actually, as a fresh experience.
Yes, as a fresh experience. Yeah. So that's possible, but it can also be an abidingness. That abidingness then allows the experience of self, the experience of individuation within that awareness, within that abidingness, within that oneness, to then also be, expressed or known. We don't just dissolve into the oneness, and then there's no more individuation. The individuation continues. Of course, there's still a body here and whatever, an Amoda or whoever it is. But if the energetic, direct realization that is an abidingness,
mm-hmm.
yeah, that everything is taking place within the one, within consciousness, and it's all, I am not, life isn't doing anything to me, life isn't happening to me, but everything is being experienced as this life in the awareness that I am, in the space that I am, in the beingness that I am. Then whatever individuation is here is sort of almost played out within that. Yeah. So it's not that you come out of it and go back into it. It's abiding. But the leela, the play of the individuation is happening within it. It's just like the waves in the ocean.
That's
the wave still
I
continues. It's not, I mean, there can be a realization of oceanness and then some kind of re-identification with waveness. And as we said, that back and forth can just start to gradually undo the identification with waviness. But that may take some time. And that's an individual journey. We don't know how or to whom that will happen in that way. But there can also be a deep realization of oceanness, and that remains while still the waves take place. But there is no re-identification with the wave.
Yes, the re-identification. Yeah, what do we call it?
Scrambling for the me.
Scrambling for the wave.
Yes.
It's like the ocean scrambling for the wave after it's realized it's the ocean.
Yes.
Why would it do that?
Exactly. But still the wave takes place. It's just like the doership is undone. Yes. I'm not the wave doing my wavy experience. There's just waving happening within the ocean. And that waving happening in the ocean is called this seeming individuation.
It seems that the relocation from the wave, from the I'm the wave and I'm lonely or I'm angry or I'm desolate, and I look out and see all these other waves, and the shift in location to the ocean allows waving to still happen. But it's not just as simple as describing it in that fashion, because actually there's a visceral change of relationship and peacefulness. Is there peacefulness? Is that equanimity, a grace, has a quality, right? Yes. It's not just, I've realized I'm on the ocean, la da da. And now
no. What we're speaking about, as always, and we always say this, it's not an intellectual understanding. It's always an energetic shift. It is a relocation. It's a shift in perception, but it's not an intellectual perception. It's not an intellectual standpoint or viewpoint. It can be.
Yeah.
And I have met individuals who have had a profound shift, but it doesn't go all the way. Yeah. And that's not a judgment. It's just something that's noticed. For it to be truly embodied, for the separation to come to a full end, it's almost a visceral thing. I don't know how that happens. I don't know the miracle, if you like, or the process, or the what is it that makes it go all the way? I only know it from my experience, and I know it in certain other people's experiences, individuals that I know. But it does have a ramification. It's like everything changes and nothing changes, or should I say nothing changes and everything changes. The waves still keep waving, life still keeps on lifing, but something fundamentally changes. It's not that the sea becomes perfectly calm. Not at all. The sea is still the sea. The nature of the sea is the sea. The nature of waves is waves. They're changing, they're ever changing, sometimes turbulent, sometimes calm. But something fundamentally changes, and that's a very almost indescribable experience. Indescribable shift, an internal shift. It's a complete revolution, an inner revolution of consciousness. And it does have ramifications. It has ramifications in that the victim self is not driving the ship. It's not driving the identity. Identity has come undone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, there is a subtle identity still with the body, even though I know I'm not the body. I am having a bodily experience. Yeah, I am not the body. I am consciousness itself. And again, that's not an intellectual understanding, but I am having a bodily experience, and I will do what it takes to take care of that bodily experience to the best of my ability, to according to some kind of intelligence, so that it's I don't know, just taken care of as you would take care of a child or a
But that's also a choice that Amoda, the individuation, is making. It's not necessarily.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, it is a choice that this individuation makes, because she enjoys that choice. She that's her wisdom, or the wisdom that comes through in this life form that wants to, and maybe at some point it won't, We're all going to age and die, and maybe at some point there'll be there's nothing more to take care of, and maybe that'll be, who knows how that will be. And then there are those who don't give much attention to that, and that's okay too. It's however it moves in you.
So I think we've unpacked it.
I think we've come to silence.
Well, I'm just following the train. I don't think we need to unpack your individual experience.
I don't think so. I think we've sort of unpacked it in that. Yeah. There isn't much more to say. I mean, I'll only say this, some people might say, well, it's okay for you. You're in a loving relationship with Kavi.
Well, there is something I was going to say as well. Yes.
Yeah.
Go on.
So, yes, I am in a loving relationship with Kavi. But I'll only say to that two things. One is that I have been on the journey, if you like, of solitude for much of my life, even though I was in relationship, but there was a period of not being in relationship as well. So I do know that's how I came to this, in deep aloneness, and not being a social person or having much interaction with people. I know that solitude, I know that aloneness. So it's through that this loving relationship has appeared, and it has appeared, I must say, and as you know, Kavi, without any intention or bidding on my part, in the sense that there was no need for a relationship. And we've spoken about that. Maybe we can speak about it another time. And so things appear, people appear, loved ones appear, but they appear as the one. They don't appear something external to me that needs to fulfill me. And again, that has a whole different intimacy, relationship, and so on. So, that's all I will say.
I think it might be interesting in the future sometime to do one on that aspect of it in relationship. Yeah, unpacking that a little bit more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it will.
So for myself, I would say that I mean this relationship with you has in many ways defined the trajectory of my life, and I'm very grateful to you and it for that. But one of the remarkable things, because I used to be a person who actually got lost I had dysfunctional relationships like most people. I got lost in them. Pisces moon, I got lost. I got lost in the whole mess, the whole bartering, the whole tentacle business of relationship. And then things started happening in the depth of our meeting. Yeah, that I realized that A, that was going to be impossible. B, it was a game that I was playing to try and make myself feel better about an existential whole that was hovering around me. And I don't know whether it happened on one day or it just happened as a process of osmosis. And I realized that you, Amoda, were a player in my experience. You weren't the experience. That I was born, somehow I appeared in this existence. I don't even know that I was born. How do I know that I was born? It's a tale told to me by my mother and father, but actually I appeared as consciousness. And I was lost for many, many years. And something started shifting through the grace of life. But at some point, you will go, or I will go, or Peyote will go. Maybe we'll go together, but maybe not. Yeah. And I will be left, or I'll have to depart. And that's me. This is the freshness of my experience. It may seem like we've been together for 20 years, and we have. But I'm alone. I feel alone. I feel alone with you in a good way.
That's right.
It feels a beautiful, beautiful relationship in that respect. And of course, there are tendencies. Of course, over 20 years, we've gotten used to each other's habits and ways and all that kind of stuff. But still, there's an alone me and an alone you. And here we are dancing our way, two alonenesses, dancing our way through existence. We might go together, we might go separately. One of us' heart will break, or both of our hearts will break, but still it doesn't stop the perennial truth. That's what you're dealing in, right? The truth of the matter.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right. And
there was a kind of relaxation within me of trying to get more than was on offer in relationship. Yeah. And acceptance. It's this. It's beautiful. Or it's terrible. It's beautiful. But still I'm alone. So thank you.
That's right. Thank you.
Are we finished?
I think so.
Okay. Thank you very much for tolerating our meanderings. We hope they've kind of entertained you or interested you or, pushed a little bit or invited a little bit or courted you a little bit. Subscribe, listen, share, whatever happens. Amoda, thank you so much for your wisdom. What do we say? I think we say something at the end of all our meetings.
See you in the kitchen.
See you in the kitchen. We'll see you again, friends, for another podcast very soon. Be well. Take care. Many blessings. Goodbye, Amoda.
Bye-bye.